Welcome to our Wednesday updates. These are all the updates for May, and we know the pattern now. Do please jump in if at any point you've got any questions you want to ask. Just a couple of things from last month. Your admin person can go into the admin panel and tell, and they've already been told which people are using appointment slots. If anyone in your organization is using appointment slots, they need to go and create appointment schedules, because appointment slots are going in July. And it will just go, and you can't, if they don't convert across, they've got to go and create appointment schedules. So they've got to go and do that. So just to ask in case there's anyone, because that's the training, requirement for you, isn't it? If you're supporting staff, so you'll need to ask the admin person to tell you what did the email say about who was using them. If there's no one using them, result. But if there are, it's worth just grabbing them for 10 minutes just to show them, because you've got to go into the admin cog of your calendar. Don't forget to turn appointment slots into appointment scheduler. And then they've got to build the appointment schedulers, and they're not difficult to do. Just there's a few steps they'll need to do that they might not necessarily know about, because if they currently look at that as it is, they'll click on the create button and they'll only see appointment slots. They won't see appointment scheduler unless they turn it on. So just to be aware of that. But it's going in July, so they'll come back in September and be very frustrated if you don't speak to them first. This is also a good one, particularly Apposite as IEG, as Gary's just said, are about to get themselves some Gemini licenses. There's a feature in the admin panel that allows them to give you the features as more or less as soon as they arrive. So in effect, in the kind of the beta phase of them. So if you want the people in your organization to have the very most recent functionality of that Gemini account, then you have to ask the admin person to go in and turn that on. I'd be encouraging that, because the rate of change. So the PDF reader is now built into the gemini.google.com prompt for personal accounts. I'm hoping that means it will very soon arrive for the Gemini for Education and Gemini Education Premium. So things are moving afoot at a great pace. So I would encourage your admin person to turn that on for all the people that do get the licenses, if you are using Gemini licenses. Quick reminder about that. Actually, I didn't just double check the dates, but I think they already know that one's the bottom one closed now, isn't it? So the only one you've got to apply for is the Amsterdam one now. That's the only one that's left. If you're still hovering and wondering about whether to apply for an Innovator Academy, that's the only one. We already know that Gary's on his way to Chicago, but there is still time for the Amsterdam one, which is much closer, should you want to do that. If anyone on the call is using app sheets, I mentioned this yesterday, but it's the kind of thing that developers use, but also your ordinary classroom teachers are also getting into these kinds of things. You can now create triggers in your app sheets based on responses from a Google form. You can just build the form and then you build the actions into the app sheet code as you build it, which is kind of quite nice. So if you're thinking about, there might be something there that you and Tony, Gary, could do to streamline the forms you've already got, maybe. So that might be worth looking at for you there. So that's good. This is quite nice. I quite like this. They've just kind of updated the way that you interact with Google Drive. So basically the way it works is that it's single letter press. So if you're on your Google Drive and there's some documents there, if you just click the first letter of that document, it highlights it. So in the example, you'd click the A for Acme customer list and press enter, and it will just open. Okay. You've also got in there and the little mini preview windows. If you put a smart chip in Google Docs, you can hover over it and get a little preview of the document. If you've got a smart chip, there's a document link. Well, basically that same functionality is here now. So if you hover over I think you've actually got to hover over the icon, so the slide icon or the drawings icon or whatever, and a little window pops up which gives you a preview of that document. Just if you're not sure if it's the right document that you want, it just gives you a sense, oh yeah, that's the one. Because we do judge by visual. You can't read it, it's too small, but it gives you a visual cue to tell you, is this the right document that I'm looking for, before you choose to open it, which is kind of quite nice. And there's also a keyboard shortcut to that, which I discovered today by accident by pressing the wrong keys, which is Alt right arrow. Does the same thing, just pops the preview up, which is quite nice. But it only works for the screen. So if you can see on this example, there's many more documents because they'd have to scroll down. But the single keyboard press works for the documents that are visible. So if you scroll down and press an L and there was no documents that had an L in it, then it wouldn't show anything. So just to be aware, it's the ones that are visible. But it's kind of quite nice if you save you moving to your mouse to get to something, which is good. So that's that. This also, I think, is really rather nice. Can I just ask, just raise the hand at the bottom of the screen if you use Looker Studio, or raise your hand manually a little bit. Gary's saying a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. Adam's starting to use it a little bit. Okay. So previous pattern was you'd go to Looker Studio, then you'd link the sheet to Looker Studio. You can be in the sheet and you can link it direct to Looker Studio. And it's really neat because it actually makes some suggestions about charts and tables that you might want, and like drop down filters and things. So it takes its best guess at what it thinks might be appropriate kind of functionality that already built into the Looker Studio. So it not only just is quicker to create the link between the sheet and the Looker Studio, like I say, it makes some suggestions about tables and charts, which I think potentially, if the guess is right, will save you a great deal of time, which I think is really rather nice. So I think that's a great thing. Looker Studio is phenomenally powerful, and it's one of those things that is currently free. There is a paid for version that does much more stuff. I don't know what much more it does because I've never yet paid for it to find out. But even the basic one, the free one, is amazing. And I always worry about the things like this that are free, that unless lots of people are using it, then it will go away. So if you have a need to present data to people, and you painstakingly build it all in sheets and make it all look pretty, and then copy the charts or link the charts directly into a Google slide deck and that kind of thing, then actually have a look at this, because it's a really great tool. Because basically you would be the creator, you got full access to all the data, but you can share it with, if this was exam analysis, for example, that you do in the August, September time about how your results look, you can share it with your senior leadership team, and they literally just get view only, but with an endless number of drop downs, so they can filter and sort it however they want. So they can look at specific departments or specific grade boundaries, or whatever you give them as a filter, they can look at it. So it's a fantastic tool, but it's one of those things I worry that if we don't use it, we might lose it. Although there is a paid for version, so that might suggest that we won't in this example, but it's definitely worth having a look at. So go and have a look at it, and it's now easy to create them. And those of you who are using Gemini, you can export the data from your organization using the takeout tool. And the takeout tool's been there for ages, for a whole host of Google apps, of course. But now Gemini is on the list of things that you can use to take out. If you're on the fundamentals, then you can actually take out only one at a time. If you're on standard teaching, learning, or education plus, or UD plus, I meant there, typo, I do apologize, then you can export a group up to 100 people all at once. So it allows you to do that should you want to. I should have put the Gemini logos in there. It's for paid Gemini accounts, not for the free Gemini stuff. I was trying this out this morning. This is really neat as well. So, I'm thinking about Adam and Gary, a good example there. You've got multiple sites, you're rushing from one site to the next to join a, and when you get there, the first thing you got to do is have a meet about something or whatever, and you're not quite there. Yeah, you're walking from the car park, you're actually able to join it with your phone. When you get to your device, the join button turns to switch here button, because it knows you're already on there, and you literally switch, and it literally is a split second, and it just automatically turns you off on your phone and joins you into the meet on whichever device you're on. Really, really neat, really quick. So it literally is a seamless move from one to the other, which is really, really neat. So I like that a lot. I think that's a great thing, particularly for people who have multiple campuses. Campi? Don't know which one it is. Campi sounds a bit camp, doesn't it? But there we go. This also I like very much. I think this is a neat thing. If you are like I am in the meet, and if you're teaching online and you're in a meet and you've got your slide deck running to do your presentation to your students, so you want to be able to see their faces, but some of them have chosen to turn their cameras off, and you're quite happy with that. When you go to change the layout, you can actually specify to hide all the screens where people have turned the camera off, so you only see the people that are showing their faces. So I think that's a really nice little thing. Just tidies up that side panel that I'm currently looking at the moment. So I can see Gary, Chris, and Adam, but I could choose to hide James, Theo, and Paul, which I think is a really neat thing. Just makes the screen that bit better, and you're not just looking at an initial or a logo or whatever. So I like that. That's a new thing. And you'll also notice that layout screen has also been redesigned. looks a little bit nicer. It's following their new design principles, isn't it? Everything's going that way slowly, so it's getting there. This here also is quite nice. Yeah, if you've got a set of data where there's a column that's just, you know, one of a number of values that it could be, if you highlight it now and Google recognizes there's a pattern to them, when you click over it, it'll give you the option to convert it to drop-down chips. So it makes the entry of those bits of data that little bit easier, which is quite nice. Makes the whole thing look a bit nicer, which is good. So I quite like that one. I've been exploring tables generally, actually, in Google Sheets. I've only just started thinking I need to get my head around these. And it's really quite nice. This is an example of it. You can basically highlight a table of data and convert it to a table, and it behaves slightly differently. So in this example, you can see the table's called tasks. One of the really nice things about it is you can actually reference the tables in your formula. So if I wanted to know, if that was just a series of numbers and I wanted to know the total value of all the values in that table, I could just literally go equals sum, open bracket, tasks, close brackets, and it actually recognizes. So in effect, the table is like a named range. So you can actually build those references into your formula. And I like that. I use named ranges in all my sheets now, because when you write formula, it reads a little bit more like natural language rather than it being cell references all the time. It tells you what that cell reference block is, so you know what it is. So I'm a great fan of named ranges. So before I even start any analysis in the sheet, I always name the ranges. But the table works exactly the same. And you can then set filters and sort and do all the usual things that you can do. You can set the data type per column, and you can just see in the little GIF that when they change the data type, you get a little icon to tell you what it is. I think that's a really neat little tool as a learning tool. If you're doing, you know, any kind of data work with students, you know, computer science or anything like that, and to understand, you know, data types are a significant and important part of building a sensible and useful data set, I think is really neat. And you've got quite a number of data sets there, text, of course, number, dates and things. You can see them all there. So I really like this. I think the potential for these is actually only going to grow and grow. And of course you can have multiple tables. What I didn't do, and I meant to do, but I got distracted by a colleague who needed a bit of help, and was whether you can actually reference multiple tables in the same formula. So I've got to play with that this week to find out if that's the case, but I assume you can. I can't think why you couldn't, because I think it just behaves like a named range. But great, I think great additional thing. Makes it look good on the screen, gives you a named range in effect, allows you to sort it by data types and make references to those tables within your formula, which is really good. So it's definitely one that's worth looking at. So if you are still teaching online and you are using breakout rooms in your meets, when you get your attendance reports, you will also get breakout room information. I've not actually yet done another meet where I've used breakout rooms since this was announced, so I don't actually know exactly what data you get. I meant to look it up and didn't, but that's for Teaching and Learning and Education Plus, of course, because they're the only two versions of Google Workspace that actually get the breakout rooms. You don't get it in the fundamentals and you don't get it in standard, but nice that you get that additional information in there as well, so that's good. I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be things like who attended each of the breakout rooms, and you might get the attendance within those breakout rooms, so the time they arrived, the time they left, and things like that. So I'm assuming that's what you get, but yeah, to check that, I'll double check that and find out. Another Gemini announcement. So if you're on the gemini.google.com page, you can now access it in a whole host of, what's that, about 25 languages, I think there. Good, there's a good number of European ones, which is quite good, because a lot of the people that we get in our colleges and schools are often from European countries, aren't they, most frequently, not entirely uniquely, but more widely other places, but a lot from the rest of Europe. Particularly pleased that Lithuania and Estonia and Latvia are in there, because we're doing quite a lot of work over there, because they're a big growth area for Google currently. So they've clearly recognized that and added them in there, which is great to see. So yes, so it's a good range of languages now. That will also continue to grow. The kind of localization process takes time with all of these things with Google. And so over time, that number will increase, but that's a good start, I think. So that's good to know. I mentioned that earlier when I was talking about the single letter searching in Google Drive, that you just literally hover over the icon of the app and you get a view of that particular document just to get a flavor of whether that's the actual document you do want to open before you actually open it, which is kind of quite nice. So that's in Google Drive. We've already covered that. Okay, so the opportunity to help you write in other languages, yeah, which is really quite nice. I think there were already other languages available, but this is addition of 2 additional languages, Spanish and Portuguese. So that's good. But of course, that relies on you having Gemini Education or Gemini Education Premium built into Gmail, so you can actually ask it to write in another language, which is great. So that's kind of quite neat. So it's basically they built Google Translate into it. Google Translate already had AI working in the background, so I presume that was a relatively simple fix for them. But that's good. Okay, so a new view in Google Drive showing your recent activity all in one place. I don't know if you've clocked this, but you've also got the information on the right about the little eye gives you the activity of individual files, but you've now got an activity tab that tells you which things have happened where, and so you can look at what's changed recently, and then you can go in there and you've got some basic tasks that you can do in the panel. So if you get a request for access, you'll see that pop up there. You can go straight to open that document and things. Just about making that a more useful place for everyone. I have to say that I'm less and less going to my Drive, and I'm wondering what other people are doing. Because the Omnibox gives you the search, as long as I know what the document is called, I just use the Omnibox to search for it and it finds it. Are people actually going to their Drive and browsing and looking for things? Or do you just use the Omnibox to open the document you need?
I've been using the home page on the Drive, Paul.
Yeah.
You know where it shows you the latest files.
Yeah,
that's what I've been using.
Yeah. I mean, there's no right or wrong here, isn't it? It's just about preferences. You know, there might be a minuscule saving of time against one from the other, but I often don't even have my Drive open anymore. I literally just go to the Omnibox and just do a search, start to type the name of it, and it almost never lets me down. So, yeah, I tend to not go to my Drive hardly at all.
I was going to say I'm a creature of habit, unfortunately, Paul. You know me these days. I use cloud search extensively because I've got in the habit of using that rather than searching through individual emails. With Drive, I tend to still go straight into Drive because I kind of forget about the Omnibox. just kind of search in the traditional way, if you like.
Shame on you.
I knew you were going to say that. So it's probably just a case of sort of re-educating myself, and it always looks really handy. And like you say, if it's finding things for you without any, loss of time and effort, then it's definitely something to consider. Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, if your Drive's already open, then there's probably almost nothing between them, is there? In reality, but if it's like I say, I often don't have it open. I'm just checking. I don't have it open now. I'll always go just into the Omnibox and search. Much quicker, much more efficient, I think. Certainly suits me. Anyway, moving on. Same option in Google Drive, just reminding you got that hover option, but it also works with videos. Yeah, and you can actually play it from there. You can also opt to go for full screen. And you've also got the option for captions and sound. You'll see those appear in the little GIF there that appears in the top right hand corner. You can actually adjust the sound and things. So just another option. And that's the same little media players that they're using Docs, I presume, that we've had for a little while. That when you hover over a YouTube video in Docs, you've got the option to preview it in there. They've just built it directly into Google Drive, so you don't need to fully open it just to see whether it's the one that you wanted, which is kind of quite neat. So this is an interesting one. So if the manager in a Google chat space generates an email, and I didn't check this today, I checked it last week and it wasn't available as a function, so it hadn't been released. If you remember, when all of these functionalities are released, they're released over 15 days. And they say 15 days, but I think they mean 15 working days. So I think they're looking at 3 weeks realistically. That's my experience of how long it takes normally. But once it's in there within a chat space, any manager can generate an email. Once you've got an email, you can email the chat space. So you can basically send an email. If you're in your email working away, you can actually, rather than going into your chat space, it's not a huge time saving thing, but if it's an extensive message, you might want to lay it all out nice and neat in an email rather than write it all out in a chat, because you've got less kind of functionality in terms of the layout of it all there. And you can then send it to that chat space, but it does rely on the manager first of all generating the email in the first instance. And you can see that it just basically makes a best guess about its name based on the title of the chat space. So that's a nice little thing that you've got that integrated straight across. And presumably because you can actually email it, you can also forward emails. So if you get an email in that relates to all the people in that particular chat space, if you're all working on a project together, to be able to say, oh, actually everyone needs to see this, you can just stick it straight in the chat space, which is kind of quite nice. And I'll presume it will also be in the shared bit. You remember the shared bit at the top of the chat space is now where all the documents are. So I'm assuming that it will sit there, but like I say, it wasn't on for us when I checked, so I wasn't able to check whether it was actually working. I'll maybe report back next month to see if that's there then. But was that a question? Someone? No. Okay. Google Gemini Premium and Education. Google Gemini only. This is that you've got adaptive audio, so it will generate. It'll adjust the noise to avoid feedback. So if you are in a room together, it will detect that you are in a room together, and it will synchronize the microphones and the speakers. I mean, wow, that's seriously clever, isn't it? To realize that and to be able to adjust that, so you don't need to worry about the number of times because if I'm doing a session and the school says, oh, we'll do it online, but we'll put all the teachers in the same room and they can all join the meet. I'm thinking, oh. So I'm forever having to show them about companion mode, where you can join in companion mode and it automatically turns your sound off and turns your mic off so we don't get feedback. If you've got that Gemini Education Premium or Gemini Education account, it will realize there are other devices and it will adjust accordingly. So that for me seems like a really neat little thing. It takes the worry away. And then again, it wasn't available, so I've yet to test it. And there's nobody else in this room. Just checking nobody has sneaked in. No, there's nobody else in this room, so I can't test it now. No. Okay, so voice typing has been around for a while. And it's now been extended out to Safari and to Edge. So if you are, for whatever reason, using either of those, can't imagine why. Chrome is king, isn't it? Why would you use anything else? But if you are, you've got the option to use voice typing within those accounts. I presume, like the same with Chrome, you've got to be properly signed into the Chrome browser for it to work. But you've got additional functionality there. And it might be you end up on a machine because you're out and about and you haven't actually got your own machine and you're having to use someone else's machine that doesn't even have Chrome on it. You never know. So it just to let you know that if you do use voice typing, it's available in those two browsers now as well. So e-signatures, I don't know if e-signatures are here. Actually, I think e-signatures is I think it's Education Plus. I forgot to put the label on it. I'm pretty sure it's Education Plus. It's still in beta, I think. So I don't actually know how it's going to end up, but I think it's going to be Education Plus, maybe Teaching and Learning as well. Currently, we're in the beta at the minute. You haven't got a text field in it at the moment, and you've only got signatures, initial and date signed. But you can add into up to 10 signers for the same document, which is kind of quite nice. And up to 200 fields, people to input data in. So it could be an application form, for example. Yeah, I did have a quick look and I only skim read it, if I'm honest, looking for if there are character limits in each of the fields, but I didn't see anything when I was looking. So it could be that there is, but I couldn't find out what that information was. But the link might give you that information. We'll have to wait and see. But I tried it out.
Just to confirm on that, yeah, it is an Education Plus feature.
Brilliant.
Yeah, no worries.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Yeah. But it is really, really neat. Like if you've got 2 or 3 people that need to sign the same document, just add in 3 signers, put in the fields you need them to sign, creates a PDF, and it's web-based, so just basically they all get access to it. So they go in there and each in their turn. And when you get to it, you'll see the other signer bits, but they're all grayed out, so you can't actually fill out the wrong one by accident. Only the one that relates to you is active. So you clearly need to be logged in for it to work. But it worked really, really well. I was really impressed with it. Chris helped me out with it last week when we were adding multiple signatories. But like I say, currently signature, initials, name and date signed, text field is on its way. It wasn't here when I checked earlier, but once it will be here, that will be great, because it gives you much more scope, particularly because you've got so many fields. You can add 200 fields. Seems to me load, so that's a great little thing. But Education Plus only. Thanks for that, Chris. Okay, those then are the updates from me. We do want to take this opportunity just to very quickly talk about Gemini Education. I remember many, many years ago, someone coined the phrase, which lots and lots of people in the kind of job I do are forever stealing, saying that technology won't take over the job of a teacher, but a teacher that uses technology will take over the job of a teacher that doesn't. And I think that's also true if you just replace the word technology with Gemini or AI. Yeah, of course it won't ever take over the job of a teacher, but a teacher that uses AI will take over the role of a teacher who doesn't. The power that it gives you, Gary was already talking about time saved and the efficiency of it and the 80% result, and him having to make adjustments just to make it suitable for his tone of voice or whatever. But I think Jamie, who's our CEO, is chair rather, is the biggest user, I think, for us all. We all use it extensively, but he's a mega user, and he says he can now begin to recognize his own voice in the responses he's getting back from Gemini. So it's learning all the time that this is how he would speak. So when he's made those changes, it's understanding it and seeing that this is the tone that I need to take for this particular person. So it's really interesting how it's growing and learning. So it's already built into docs, sheets, slides. You can now also make slides. You couldn't when it first was launched into slides. You could only create images, but you can actually now create slides, which is great. You can now do data analysis in Google Sheets, which you couldn't do when it was first launched. I've used it to do responses to emails, and I think I'm not quite sure how to phrase this. I'll get Gemini to give me a go. It gives me a response, and it's same as with Gary. It's not perfect. It's not 100%. I don't just click send. I make some adjustments to make it more suitable or adjust the reality. It's made something up which we wouldn't do or we're not offering. So I just make a few adjustments and then I'm able to send. So it saves me a load of time when I'm thinking, I can't think of how best to respond. It responds for me. So I'm really impressed with it. It's great. It's also in Drive. It does a really nice thing about kind of summarizing. You ask it to go on. So I teach a session on accessibility. I asked it to go and find my docs about accessibility and to summarize it for me, which it did. And then it referenced the documents at the bottom. So I knew which documents it'd been reading. So I could go back to those and double check the information that it'd given me. So it's really nice that the chat button, not the chat button, the Gemini button is already in chat, but it's not actually turned on. So that must be the next one. It must be imminent to arrive into Google Chat anytime soon. Because like I say, the Gemini button's there and you click on it, it just says arriving soon. So I'll give Chris a chance just to quickly go through the pricing here so that you're aware of what the deals are.
Yeah. I think there might only be there's Theo and Paul on who I did this for yesterday in the Techie Tuesday. I've practiced now, Paul, so this will be much slicker than yesterday's attempt. So obviously our IEG friends will be well impressed with this. So yeah, there's a couple of options and there's some decent savings to be had here. If we look at both the options available, Gemini Education, I sort of classed as the fundamentals version yesterday. There's features and functionality in that, but it's not going to get the same input as Education Premium, which I would class more as the Education Plus model. I think that's the one that's going to get all the additional features coming through. All the paid services, if you like, are going to end up in that one primarily. Just on the pricing on these, there's some good offers at the moment. The date at the bottom there says valid until the 29th of July. It's a little bit later than that. It's sort of mid-August, technically the end of August, but we've got to process the orders. So we're telling people, if you can, try and get your orders in before the end of July. It just makes it easier for us to process those. And Google is fairly strict when it comes to cut-off dates and discounts on products. So if we start with Gemini Education, if you're a fundamentals, teaching and learning, or standard user, then you're entitled to a 20% discount. If you are an Education Plus subscriber, then we can offer a 25% discount. So on that, if we look at the 20% discount, that would bring your annual fee down to £161, £13.44 a month. Or with the 25% discount, £151, £12.60 a month. There's no discounts on the monthly plans. So if you were buying the flexible monthly, that'd come in at 2016. The premium model on that particular one, if you're in education, fundamentals, teaching and learning, or standard, you get the 20% discount. So that would be £241.92 or £20.16 a month. And with the Education Plus, 25% discount, £226.80, £18.90 a month. And the monthly fee there is obviously £30.24, which doesn't get any discount. But yeah, there we go. Slightly smoother than yesterday, Paul. At least I've written down all the options on this one. I missed one out yesterday.
Yeah.
You wait till we do it next month. I'll be even better.
Yeah. So excellent. Thank you very much. For any questions about or any comments about any of the functionality we've seen today? Anything you think that's good? I'm pleased that's arrived.
I think there's one thing I've mentioned, Paul. You talked about Lucas Studio there earlier on. If anybody on the call or anybody who watches this back wants to dig into that in a little more detail, Francisco, one of our technicians, is currently doing some work with the school where he's just running through the basics, getting them up to speed with it. We'd be happy to start from whatever level you are coming into this with any advice and tips that you may need. So like you say, Paul, it is an incredibly powerful piece of kit, and it's there to be used. So why not? It's good to see that Adam's interested in that earlier, which is good.
Lucas Studio is great, absolutely great. And the more I play with it, the more I think this is amazing. So excellent.
The only other thing I'd say there, I know Theo made a comment in the chat earlier about a feature within Meet that was stolen from Teams, which is, yeah, absolutely correct. But I think the benefit of not only sort of Copilot and Gemini pretty much launching at the same time, and competing obviously for people's businesses, a little bit like the same thing happened during lockdown with Microsoft and Teams and the paid versions of Workspace. Microsoft and Google are both pushing themselves to get in front of one another, and I think the end users are the ones who benefit from this. So the more of these features that come out on one particular model, I think they're going to move across. They're always looking to outdo each other, aren't they, Paul? So it's never a bad thing. This innovation is never a bad thing for the end user, I would say.
No. I did have Copilot request to join a meeting with me last week. Joining meetings is a functionality that Gemini is going to bring out soon. It's not quite here yet. It's taking notes, which is great. I've stopped making notes in meetings now. I can kind of concentrate on talking to the person, which is really nice. Because the quality of the Gemini notes that I get at the end. So I met with a school this morning who's delivering some training on Monday. She said, "Oh, I want to cover these things, Paul. Can we do that?" I said, "Yeah, of course we can. No problem at all. Anything else you need to cover?" We discussed what they were going, what the order would be, and all that kind of stuff. And then reading through the notes afterwards, it's just all there now. So I've just copied and pasted it into the instructions and the comments at the bottom of a Google event. And I've got my agenda for the day there already sorted. It's fantastic. I don't have to use my pens at all. I might get rid of my notebook.
So Paul, is that's built into Meet, yeah?
Yeah.
So you just click on a button.
You've got access to it. even though it's my account, if you click in that, you'll see in the top right hand corner, there's a circle. So if you click on that, it will open out and it puts the summary in there. That's a summary. And then you don't get exactly that in the notes. But if you look at the bottom of it, there's a link to the notes. I think you might have to request access.
Okay, I won't do it right now.
Yeah. But you click on that and then it actually takes you to the notes.
So does it summarize the meeting then, like this meeting here, or does it like a transcription? Does it do both? Or
it's not a word for word transcription. I have turned transcription on, so that actually is also running. What I'll do, Tony, is that I'll send you both afterwards, so you can compare the transcription against the actual. What Gemini does is it converts, it listens to what you say and then summarizes each of the things that you say. No, it's not like it's an extensive document, and what you get in the Meet currently, if you open that up, is you get a summary of the meeting. So I've currently got, we've done 3/4 of an hour, and I've got 5, 6 short paragraphs, 7 short paragraphs. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, that's quite interesting, because I was just thinking about, pie in the sky kind of thing. Our board meetings are often, they happen in the boardroom, but there's often people who've joined by Google Meet. So the clerk is there busy trying to write all the minutes, and, she could just enable this, and then she'd get a summary of the board meeting.
She would, yeah. She could just turn a Chromebook on in the corner, start a new Meet, set it going, and just leave it.
Okay.
Just for the purpose of science and trialing this, Paul, when you're sending the summary across, can we have an action, please, for Tony to get the bruising?
There you go. Yeah.
Oh.
And you're quite right, Gary. That will appear in the actions, but equally you can say, "Is it your turn to get the bruising, Tony?" I think you should do it this time. That will also probably appear as an action. You don't have to be so what's the word? Instructive, I suppose. It understands that it was you've phrased something that sounds like it should be an action. So it's really, really clever in that respect. Theo, you're
better not swear then, because will it summarize the swearing?
I don't know. I'm much too clean mouthed to even try that. Sorry, Theo, you would like to ask a question or make a comment?
Yeah, it was more really with Gemini. I know yesterday we spoke about this briefly. It doesn't obviously doesn't interact with what's going on. It's purely looking, I'm assuming, at the guest. So if someone puts comments like I did earlier, do you think those will be picked up as well, or is just not there just yet? Like the stuff people put in the chat, will they come into the summary?
I've not seen any of the in-call messages reflected in the Gemini document that it creates. It's just the spoken bit.
Yeah. Okay.
I've not actually actively looked for it, but I've read through a few of them. I thought, no, but often we don't use comments. I'm going to make a note of the comments in here, and I'll double check. I'll share them with you as well, Theo. I'll share them with everyone. So you'll have the transcript, which was a tool that was already there, which is a paid for service, of course, and because it comes with record, and the Gemini bit side by side, so you can compare the two. Transcript will be much more a word for word transcription. Yeah, Gemini is more intelligent than that. It summarizes it into bullet points, into comments and things, and into actions.
So as somebody on the meeting, can I tell? I mean, obviously, I can see that you're recording, and I can see that you're running a transcription because those icons come up. I can't see if you're running Gemini. Is that correct? Or do we need to?
Have you got the little circle in the top right-hand corner with a pencil and a star in it?
Yeah, we have.
If you click on that, it will open up and it will say Gemini is taking notes.
Okay.
You see that?
But and we've got some which is good.
And it's been going long enough now for it to have. Oh, no, it's not. It's created the document. Here, I'm just going to share this tab. Here we go.
Yeah.
Here's the document so far. It tells me all the people that have been invited, who's not attending, or I said they're not invited, going to take, but it's not copied any of the text into this document yet. That happens directly after we.
Okay.
directly
Yeah, just
after
what?
you
Yeah,
leave the
just
meeting.
having just jumped into another meeting and just sort of testing this. If you don't start the meeting taking notes for Gemini, it's just like a black and white icon in the top corner. So it's not blatantly obvious probably that it's taking it, but it does change the icon in that corner as well, just to sort of let people know, I guess. I think it announced it as well, didn't it, Paul, when it started?
It did. When I turned it on, it announces it.
I think it did say Gemini is taking notes. So obviously you'd have to be in at that point, I guess, to kind of see that. But
also, if you arrive after the notes have started to be taken, you will also be notified before you join the meeting. In the same way that you're told if it's recording, you get told.
I had that when I logged into the call. It told me.
Right. Yeah. Good.
Gemini was running. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Theo makes a good point there. It would be nice if that, like the sort of chat summary was in there, Paul, wouldn't it? If Theo asked this question, the reply was or whatever, that'd be quite handy as well. It might be something that's coming along. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, you get the chat summary when you record, don't you?
You do indeed. Yeah.
Document. If you're not recording, you don't get the chat summary.
Okay. Now I know I joined late because I was busy doing some other stuff. Honest. Is there? Did you mention Notebook LM?
I didn't know.
No, it's not part of the Google tools as such in education, blah blah. But it's now available in the UK, and we've been having a little bit of a play with it. It looks
Just
very.
say a little bit about it.
But it's like a note-taking tool that allows you to include or add your own source materials, whatever that happens to be, and then you can then do analysis on those materials. So you can ask it questions about the materials and the content to get further insight, as it were. It's a bit like building your own AI based on your own resources, as it were.
Yeah. Well, I'm presuming the LM is language model, is it?
Yes.
A large language model. It's a notebook language model.
Yeah, it's pretty clever. So you can put up to 20 resources in at a time, and they can be PDFs, copy and paste, links to websites.
Yeah.
And then you can ask it questions, and it's more for, I see it for, it's for 18 plus, a bit like Gemini, age 18 plus, but for our UCP students, it's going to be a really powerful tool for doing research, but more for business support staff, our adminers. If we had a report to write, say, and we've got a collection of reports for previous years, you can bang them all in. And if the AI is only looking, and it uses Gemini Advanced as well, so it's using 1.5, and it only analyzes that information. So you're creating, like Tony said, your own data source, and it learns very quickly because it's only looking at that, not everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because AI has grown on the assumption that the larger language model, the better, actually. But I am wondering whether that might be a better way to do it. Some of you might have heard us talk about Merlin, latest iteration of Merlin. It's not ready for launch in the UK until the summer, till August, September time. But they're testing now where a teacher puts up their own corpus of work. So you complete all your resources for a teaching program of wherever it happens to be, and that's what it searches for when it does its search. So it's not a large language model, but a limited language model. Now, of course, it depends on you double checking your resources, because the best school in the world, however brilliant you are at your subject, there's likely to be a couple of errors in there. So you need to double check them carefully. But once you've done that, for you and your students to be able to interrogate your entire corpus of that material that you've developed over years in the delivery of that particular course, that could be really, really powerful, I think.
I think so, yeah. And the other thing, like Gemini, it's everything is private to you. It doesn't go to the outside world.
Yeah.
It stays within your domain, kind of thing, which is really clever. But
Yeah,
I really like
I agree.
building your own database effectively, and you can build multiples, different ones as well, which is quite good.
Yeah.
And you say again, what are the limits to the formats? Will it take sheets, databases?
So at the moment, it'll take, I think it was
PDF.
It's PDFs, links, copy and paste, slides.
Can't remember now. what else it would take.
Let me have a look.
But I mean, I'll give you an example. I used it just to play with it at home, and I'm writing some short stories at the moment. I've got 9 short stories, so I just did copy and pasted them all in separately, and then I could ask it questions about the stories. You know, like what's the common theme, and you know,
Right.
that kind of thing. It was really quite interesting. Yeah, so
Very
click on
good.
new.
Right, so you can upload from Drive, PDF, text file, copied text, or website.
Excellent. So is that
I
any
really
document comes like that?
You have a go and have a play with it, because I
Yeah,
think
I will.
people on the call would find it quite interesting. I mean, you could do one, Paul, you know, around your music interest and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Could be very interesting.
Yeah. Actually, talking about that, you've reminded me. The other day I was doing a demonstration of Gemini, and they asked about image, because of course Gemini.google.com, the prompt there will read an image, and I said, oh, well, I hadn't prepared. I said, well, let's just try it. I've got some images here. The first one I came to was a photograph of a piece of music I was trying to learn, so I put that up there and asked it to do some analysis of it. It correctly identified the style, correctly identified the composer, correctly identified the key. Any key change, it was like, it's just astonishing what that it actually was reading a piece of music and in effect doing a musical analysis of it for me. So I was really impressed with it. That's my first sortie into the image stuff. Yeah, I also put an image of, I was trying to, you probably bored to death with this, I'm trying to learn Italian. I put up an image with 16 items of clothing. I couldn't remember the Italian for them all. Asked it to give me all the Italian words for each of these pieces of clothing. It recognized each image and gave me the Italian for it, but the images were numbered. I didn't ask it to do this, but it actually numbered the list it gave me. I then asked it to put it in a table with Italian in one column, English in the next, and then once you put stuff in tables in Gemini, don't forget, it says, oh, do you want to copy this to the sheet? So literally there's a click at the bottom, you click the link and it just drops into a Google Sheet for you. So as a teaching resource now, I've got English and whatever language you're teaching side by side as a tool for the students to use. It's great. It's, how much? And I could have made that myself if I was a language teacher. You know, I could have looked them up if I didn't know them all. I just knew them if I was a language teacher and just type them all out. But how much time did that save me?
Yeah. Did you try putting in a photograph of yourself and it told you that it was not a very good actor, but had a nice beard?
Oh, harsh. How do you
How
remove someone from a call?
See, Chris needs to put a photo of himself in, and it'd probably tell him to grow a beard or something like that, you know.
Yeah, I could put that picture in of me there, that one.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Recognize it was the. Well, that's actually based on a genuine outfit that was worn by the Earl of Leicester. I wonder whether it recognised that it was the Earl of Leicester.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll have to see. Anyway, this has been excellent. Good old chat. I've very much enjoyed today. That's been great. Some new tools you've discovered.
I've just seen the actions it's given. It's put an action that says, Tony will get a bruising.
There you go.
Oh,
So, yeah,
love it.
it's fantastic. I'm really impressed with it. I think it's a great tool. So I'm gonna end the recording now.